Welcome to Chads by Christ. I'm Charlie.
I'm Sean.
Another week, another half a paycheck for you because you're fortnightly. How you been?
Yeah, I never thought about that. I mean, it's still full paycheck.
I mean, yeah, but you get paid fortnightly. I get paid weekly.
Why would that make it half a pay? Okay, fine.
yeah,
Yeah, same old. It's a long weekend this weekend, which was good.
that was fun. Very hot though,
Yeah,
this long weekend.
it was very hot. Yeah,
And now it is cold. Kinda.
yeah. Melbourne's wild, man.
Yeah, I kinda miss the heat.
You say that, but then the heat will come back, and you'll be like, ah.
I mean, as much as I like
Actually,
the ski
yeah.
jacket,
No,
I had
you
to wear the ski jacket and I felt awful. I was like, I hate this.
today.
Today, yeah, because it was rainy. And I had to go out and
Uh,
I had to be outside for a site visit.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I had to drive to Albert Park.
Oh yeah, how was that?
The thingy MSAC. It was alright. I was not great. I mean, the guy asked, like, are you familiar with this site? I'm like, no, I've never been here before. So that was like, nice. Good impressions.
Yeah,
Gonna win the job.
I mean.
Um,
Surely your
but,
basis on getting the job isn't based on how well you know the area.
I mean, it helps. Like,
That's true.
no, knowing that it's a public space, like, I need to think about that when I price it, because I gotta think about, keeping all of the people out of the way of the works.
Yeah.
You can't just put a fence down and call it a day.
Fair enough.
But yeah, more fun stuff. Like the site was in Albert Park, so I got to drive down a bit of the Grand Prix track,
Right, yeah, true.
which is neat. Felt weird, but yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my day. How was your day?
Yeah, my day was good. Just worked from home today. Yeah. Like two of the main projects that I've done are pretty much like close to wrapping up. So just mainly like cleaning a few things up here and there. I'm working
Nice.
on a few little side things.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah. Bit of a
Yeah,
breezy week.
not bad. Breezy week, nice and refreshed,
Yeah.
which is good because we're getting back into our Commandment series after our
Yep.
little break last week.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this second part of Commandment 5 isn't as heavy as the first part, because yeah, that was rough. But yeah, so this isn't as bad. It's still serious stuff, but it's not as grim. And it's also oh, go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, it's also probably more applicable to us, like
Yeah,
you and
yeah,
me and our listeners. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping most of us listeners aren't in a position to take a life in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this one should be good.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, you were
Yeah, I
going
was
to
just
say
gonna
something.
say. I was like doing some prep, like for this topic, and I realized that like for this commandment, Father Mike had done like 4 or 5 episodes.
We're gonna
Like
try and condense it into
when he does catechism in a year.
one.
And I'm like,
Yeah,
dang, fair enough.
yeah, because
Yeah,
this commandment's big.
yeah, it's dense. Yeah. I didn't really think about that when I started. I thought it was just like, don't kill. But like it's so much bigger than that.
I mean, there's stuff in my notes. I tried to summarize the whole thing, and there's stuff in here that isn't even really covered.
Mm.
Um, so we've got a big dense boy. We have no idea where to start once again. So where should we start? Start with the catechism, I guess.
Yeah, like I say, we just pick up where we left off. So I think we finished. So I guess it's split up into like 2 parts in the catechism itself. So the
Mm-hmm.
first part the first part which we discussed last episode was regarding respect for human life.
Yep.
And now the second part is regarding the respect for the dignity of the person.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so I guess this part goes into just general respect for the souls of others. So we go into like things like scandal and like health, as well as just furthermore, regarding like the respect for the dignity of the person and like bodily integrity. And then I think the
Mm-hmm.
last part of it is respect for the dead, and then like peace, and like war and like how to handle that as well.
Yeah. So I think that's like 3 parts actually. We lied.
Is it?
So yeah, so the second part is respect for the dignity
Oh
of
yeah, you're
people,
right.
and
You're right.
then the stuff about peace
Just
and
on
war is its own
safeguarding peace.
section.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true, true. Missed the page.
Um,
But yeah, should we get started with part two then?
yeah, yep. So
Yeah.
start with respect for human dignity.
Mm.
The first thing the Catechism talks about is, like, within this section, it splits it into different types of respect, as
Mm-hmm.
Desh mentioned. So the first one it talks about is an interesting one. It's respect for the souls of others. Um, to sum it up, like, best way I'd sum it up is what this means is that we don't lead other people into sin,
Mm.
and this is what is known as the sin of scandal. Um, this is what Christ talks about when he talks about, like, whoever leads one of these little ones into sin, it's better for him to have a millstone around his neck.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, scandal is a well, I'm scrupulous, so like don't use my experience as a metric, but like I've always found it a little bit difficult to define. But the
Same,
Catechism does a good
actually.
job.
Yeah.
Um, so Catechism paragraph 2284 defines scandal as an attitude or behavior that leads another to do evil.
Mm.
Um, so like the thing with my scruple is like I'll think, I can't stop someone from doing a bad thing, so am I like guilty of scandal by letting them go ahead with what they're doing, or like by not, taking drastic action to stop them, or like not starting a fight or whatever. Um, but if I were to be like strictly following the definition that the Catechism puts forth, the answer is probably no. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like, yeah, like it'd be good if I could actively stop them, but if I'm not able to stop them, it's not my responsibility. Um, so what it would be my responsibility is if I directly encouraged someone to do a bad thing.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we have to a certain degree like responsibility to stop others from sinning.
Hmm.
But like yeah, like it's to a certain degree. Like you don't I don't know.
Like, yeah, like this isn't like a live and let live sort of like you do you and
Yeah,
me do me
exactly.
sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, we live by true. We live by the truth, right? Like
exactly.
we uphold the truth, and so there is an element that in our living the truth, we also have to put forth the truth
Yeah,
presented to others,
exactly. Like you
but they
can
can go on.
yeah, I was just gonna say like you can like impart your truth onto other people, but at the end of the day, you can't like control their decisions. Like, like they have like they were given the God given gift of free will, so like you can't at the end of the day control their decisions. You can impart your truth and beliefs onto them, like not force them on, but you can tell them this is what I think, this is what I
Yep.
believe, this is what the Catholic Church teaches.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I guess scandal in particular is like do not get lead people in sin. Do not give them reasons to sin. Do not give them like don't set is setting a bad example part of scandal? I guess so, right?
Oh well, yeah. Like if you sin and people imitate you, then yeah, like that's a type of
Yeah.
scandal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Um, and I mean, look, like I mean, it just comes down to like avoid sin at that point, you know.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, there is no such thing as a personal or like a private sin.
Yeah.
Um, it will affect someone else one way or the other because, especially if we're baptized, right? Like we're all one body in that sense. Um, and then in other senses, like typically speaking, most sins require you to hurt someone in some way.
Mm.
Um, or like require someone getting hurt. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Um,
And I guess like scandal takes on a particular gravity. That's in 2285 of the Catechism.
mhm.
Especially like for people in positions of authority.
Yep.
Because he basically who so people in positions of authority who cause it or become the weakness of those who are scandalized. I think that's where, well, that's part of where you mentioned that curse before as well. Whoever curses
Mm,
causes one of these little ones who believe in sin, it would be better for him to have a great millstone around, fastened around his neck.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah, scandal is like in this scenario, it would be a grave offense. Like especially for those by nature or like by office are obligated to like teach and educate others. So like teachers, for example,
Yeah. Like that. You and
teachers,
me as
politicians.
youth leaders. You and me. We
Yeah,
are
yeah.
particularly bound by this, which is a bit
Like I feel
oppression.
like
Not gonna lie.
yeah, I feel like the biggest one that I can think of in recent times was like during like COVID times in Melbourne. Like
Mm.
due to the political scene, people weren't allowed to like meet their obligation. I mean, it was that there was the
Look, it was
exemption.
dispensed. Um,
True.
so within the dispensation, you were, okay,
But like
but
even after the dispensation finished, like I think
oh, it's
no
still
actually.
going. I mean,
No, I think it finished last year.
that's no, yeah, dispensation's been lifted and people still don't go. But
That's true. That's true.
look, I don't know too much about the details. The people I do know that
Yeah.
aren't going, like that's their choice, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true.
Um, yeah, that. Like, I get what you mean though. Like, not that the dispensation itself was scandal, but I'm sure like attitudes before and after.
Mm.
There's an element of it comes from the top down.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like people were
Um,
given like that sort of freedom and yeah, they definitely might have been taken advantage of as well.
mm,
But
um,
yeah.
but yeah,
Um
there's a lot to that though. Like there's
true, true.
issues of formation and yeah, is being bad at your job a form of scandal if you're a teacher? It's probably not great, but I don't know if we're gonna split hairs like that.
Sorry, say again.
Is being bad at your job like if you're a teacher, right, and you're bad at your job and the kids learn the wrong lessons from you, not because you're like deliberately doing the wrong thing,
Oh. I
but
mean, yeah, if you're not deliberately doing the wrong thing, then I wouldn't call that scandal. Because
okay.
scandal means that you're intentionally leading another to do evil, does it not?
Mm, yeah. Yeah, the church is in a weird place right now where a lot of
Mm,
pastors aren't even equipped to teach properly.
that's
So,
true.
I mean, who am I to speak? But, formation is lacking in general.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Like, it feels like I'm figuring it all out on my own. Sorry, I was mumbling there. It feels like I'm figuring all of this out on my own a lot of the time.
Hmm.
And there's good
I think it
resources out there, but
there is, but like I feel like it depends on like your situation as well, like as in like where you're going to mass, all that kind of stuff as well. I mean, there's a certain
hmm,
element of control you have over that, obviously.
yeah, yeah. Uh, but
Like
like
for
even
example,
like
I don't really straight that far from our parish most of the time.
yeah, same. I'll go to the occasional other church for occasions, as it were. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, even that like what you just said, like oh, you can pick where you go to church. Like there's still that element of like I have to figure that out on my own.
that's true. That's true.
Um, but anyway, I digress.
Yeah, we should keep going.
Um, I mean, really like, that is a brief overview of Scandal, right? Like,
That's pretty much scandal. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Uh, the next part
directly
was
leading others to sin
laws
by
and
example
institutions.
thing. Yeah, and then
Yeah,
it's you have more gravity the more authority you have, with
yeah,
the
yeah.
with the highest being laws and institutions, as it were. Anyway, next on the agenda is respect for health.
Mhm.
Um, so, contrary to popular opinion, Catholics believe that the body is a good thing. And like our bodies are gifts from God and we should treat them with respect.
Mm.
So our bodies and our health and the health and bodies of other people.
Yeah,
Um, this thing about like treating other people's bodies with respect plays a big part in a lot of the morality associated with sexuality. Sex? Can I say that word? Am I allowed to say that? Do I need to
Yeah.
blot it out?
No,
Is that a bad word? Is that a no-no word? Am I gonna get
no, you're
cancelled?
100% right. Like it's a big problem in our culture nowadays, I think.
Yeah, but we'll touch on that in the commandments that are relevant to it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Point is, overall, like as a whole, as a what's the like undercurrent theme, an underlying theme of like morality associated with people is that our bodies are good, and our bodies are given to us by God,
yeah,
and so we
yeah,
got to respect our bodies and our persons. But you know, we'll keep going through that. Um, as far as health specifically is concerned, I mean, there's a lot in here in the catechism, but it's pretty straightforward again, right? Just look after yourself and others.
yeah,
So, uh, you know, eat good, exercise good,
yeah,
uh, look after yourself.
yeah. That's the basic elements, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a bit of stuff in here about temperance and drugs, the use of drugs.
Mm, mm,
So, like stay out of addictions
yeah,
and uh, don't take substances that will damage you. Yeah, that's what this says.
yeah. I guess it's like don't take substances that like impair you, like to make good and rational decisions.
Yep. Um,
Except on like therapeutic grounds, for example, like if like those
yeah,
substances are like needed like for like medication,
yeah,
that kind
yep.
of thing. Yeah,
Medicine, good. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
chasing a high, bad. That's your basic law. Um,
yeah. I think there was also a part about like like part of the catechism goes into like the requirements of society that like all citizens should have like those basic building blocks you were talking about before. So like everyone should have like food and clothing, housing, healthcare, like
mm,
education, employment, social assistance. Like those are all things that
yep,
yeah, like the basic human, like I guess in our society should have.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, yep. Because again, like we've mentioned this, it was in part 5 of one. No, part 1 of this commandment,
Yeah.
and elsewhere, I think in commandment 4, we've been saying that ideally, all right, like in the Catholic ideal society, a society is ordered towards people, and so
Hmm.
society needs to look after people, and that includes their health and all these things that develop, promote. That's a good word. Promote health.
Hmm.
Um, but just after that section, actually, there's something really interesting in the Catechism, which is paragraph 2289, which says that if morality requires respect for the life of the body, it does not make it an absolute value. Um,
Hmm.
it rejects a neo pagan notion that tends to promote the cult of the body and to sacrifice everything for its sake, to idolize physical perfection and success at sports. By its selective preference of the strong over the weak, such a conception can lead to the perversion of human relationships. Um, yeah, that's an interesting one
Yeah.
because it's almost like we have to temper our respect for, a strong, healthy body because it can and will come at the detriment of our respect for persons who tend to be weaker.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, not to dive too much into the part 1 grimness, but this is where a lot of that stuff comes from, right? Like this disrespect for the elderly, for the sick,
Hmm.
for the unborn,
Yeah.
these like weaker, quote unquote, weaker people, because they don't have like that optimized strength
Yeah. Yeah.
um, that is expected in society.
Like no
It's a
matter. Yeah. 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 100% right.
no, go on.
No, I was just gonna say like no matter if you're not as you were sort of saying like not particularly in like a good state of like health or maybe like you're going through like other like sort of like health issues and that kind of thing or even just like you might think that you're not good at one thing, and like that sort of detriments you like as a person. Like I feel like that all sort of ties in. Like
Mm.
like that's where it's talking about, because that can affect then like your like the way like you see other relationships and like the way you see other people in turn.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's a like probably the most benign form of this would be like romantic shallowness. Yeah,
Elaborate.
like prioritizing things like height or muscles or
Ah, true,
like
true.
slimness
Yeah,
in women or um,
yeah, yeah,
tall, short,
yeah.
curvy,
100%. I mean,
all that stuff, right? Um,
like you're not wrong in like having certain traits that you would maybe find desirable in someone else, but
mm,
like
mm.
you shouldn't use that first of all to like detriment someone else or like to think lower of someone else.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Have you heard of the halo effect, Dash?
I feel like I have, but jog my memory.
It's this like psychological thing where like you'll think better of a person if you're more attracted to them, or like if you find them attractive.
Oh wow.
There was a news report, like I think yesterday or the day before, actually, on the TV, that was saying
Okay.
like convicted murderers who like are seen as more attractive tend to get lower sentences, which is kind
Wow.
of cooked.
That's intense. Wow,
Yeah.
that's wow.
Um, yeah, so that's like the inverse of what we were just talking about, but it's the same thing, right? It's that idolization
Yeah,
of,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
the body to the
Yeah,
detriment of justice.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah,
yeah,
that's respect for health in a nutshell. This really is a nutshell, like we skimming.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I think we covered everything in that
Yeah.
particular section. Next section is respect for the person and scientific research.
Yep. This is another fascinating one. What a big paragraphs in here. So I might just go
Yeah,
through my notes rather than yeah, I'll just go through my notes.
I guess like the
So
general gist of it like starts from 2292, which is like a, sort of a pretty good summation, and then we
mm,
can like go into the specifics. Like 2292 says scientific, medical, or psychological experiments on human individuals or groups can contribute towards the healing of the sick and the advancement of public health.
yep.
Like I
Yeah.
guess like that should be the focus in like any experimentation that goes on, like the advancement of public health and like the healing of the sick.
Yep. Yep. Like oriented towards good ends. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
we don't want mad science. It is immoral to turn people into dinosaurs. To
You mean
quote,
Frankenstein was immoral?
yes, well, yeah, Doctor Frankenstein was a mark.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah, well,
point of the
yeah,
book. Yeah.
literally, yeah.
Um, Speaking of, like, I think the other paragraph that's the key important one is 2295,
Yeah.
which says that research or experimentation on the human being cannot legitimate acts or like make legitimate acts that are in and of themselves contrary to the dignity of persons and the moral law.
Mhm.
So, and the subject's potential consent does not justify such acts. So, morality has to override like whatever science you do,
Yeah.
and consent doesn't override morality.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
Two people can consent to do evil; it's still evil.
Yeah.
Um, and so it elaborates and it says that experimentation on human beings isn't morally legitimate if it exposes
Mhm.
someone's life or physical and psychological integrity to disproportionate or avoidable risks.
Mhm.
Um, so you hear a lot about like, especially World War II. You hear a lot
Yeah.
about experiments done on POWs, prisoners of war,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, that are like terrible experiments, right? Like they like
Yeah.
live dissection level terrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Goes without saying that sort of thing is bad.
Yeah.
Um, and
I was,
even though go on.
sorry, yeah, go on.
I was just going to keep reading the paragraph
Oh,
because it
yeah.
talks
No, like,
about but yeah, you
yeah.
go on.
No, I was gonna say, I was listening to an episode of Catechism here, just on this specific commandment,
Hmm.
and Father Mike had been telling this story, basically about a guy. So he's like the line of work that he was in was like doing research and experiments on like human embryos.
Mm.
Yeah, so this guy was like I guess in his 40s. So like one day, so he didn't have like a Christian or a Catholic background or anything like that. Like
Yep.
he was of like maybe like of like another religion.
Hmm.
But basically one day he had gone home, and he has two kids, so he has like a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yep.
So yeah, one day he'd just gone home, and he was just like, sitting with his kids, like sort of watching them play, watching them interact with him, like with each other. And
Mm.
he's sort of thinking to themselves, like, wow, these are like two completely different people. Like they interact in completely different ways with me, with the world, with each other.
Mm.
Um, like they both like had this sense of individuality about them.
Yep.
And that was basically what led him to like realize that like each individual human person has like human dignity, like in their own human dignity. And like basically in his line of work he was almost like toying around with that, like with like
Mm.
experimenting on like embryos and stuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so like that basically led him out of that line of work, like just like that interaction of watching his kids,
Mm. It's
which
been
I
a
found.
while. Yeah, that's cool. Cool is the wrong word, but like that's what's the word? Like I'm glad he came to that realization.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Um. Yeah. No. Like don't
Yeah, like
harm
anything.
humans for science. It's not.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
not good. Don't do that. Um. The last part of this paragraph says that it basically says like any experimentation done on a person has to happen with their consent. Because there are good forms of experimentation, like morally illicit forms of
Yeah, yeah.
human experimentation. Clinical trials, for example,
Mhm, mhm.
where they've like developed and more or less finalized a new treatment, and now they're going
Yeah,
to test it live. Um, yeah, that's fine because like you've like developed it to the point where it's not going to do like you don't expect it to do undue harm, and like the only way you're going to find out is through live trial, but you don't want it to, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? We know what
yeah,
we know what clinical trials are, right? Like I'm explaining it badly.
no, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
like those are okay, but like the subject has to give like they have to know what's going on, and they have to give their full consent, right?
Yeah, yeah,
If they're
exactly.
going to put mystery substances in your body, you should know, and you should agree that you're putting mystery substances in your body.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense.
True. But like
Um,
again, I feel like those clinical trials and stuff are still like if you're looking at it from this perspective, it has to be towards like sickness or like
yeah, yeah,
towards like resolving them. It wouldn't like for example, like something that enhances like a normal human being's like capacity, like mental capacity or like physical capacity, I feel like then it's
yeah,
going against the morality clause of
yeah,
this
yeah, yeah,
command.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Remember, morality overrides consent, but
Yeah,
like consent is
exactly.
still a part of morality, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, yeah, so like when I say clinical trials, I was talking more about stuff like cancer treatment,
Mhm.
medicinal treatment, right? Not steroids.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so yeah, um, there's a little note here in 2296 about organ transplants, and I think it comes up again later on when we talk about the dead. But because I know some Christian denominations don't like organ transplants. Uh, Catholics are okay with organ transplants, given like everything mentioned above, right? So, um, like it has to be done for therapeutic purposes and not for like the rich extending their lives or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
it has organ donation is like specifically the acceptable circumstance, right? Not organ harvesting.
Mm-mm.
We can't like go steal kids from Brazil and take their kidneys. Don't. That's bad.
Thanks for clarifying.
No worries. We're here to educate.
But the sad thing is that
That
kind of thing
happens.
does happen. It's very
Yeah,
sad.
it's awful.
Yeah.
Um, it was like, yeah, so yeah, you can donate your organs, given that
Mm.
like it's not going to cause disproportional damage to yourself. Um, so that's why like donating your organs when you die like is fine and allowed. Um, and again, like the use of those organs has to be for therapeutic purposes.
Mhm.
Um, and you got to give express consent again, and it's as I mentioned earlier, like it's not morally allowed. It is a bad thing to kill someone to take their organs. Um, it's a donation. Like donation is accepted, taking is not. That sounds right, yeah, Dash.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, like if it's given with consent or like someone, well, yeah, consent in every sense of the word, right? Like, I guess if someone like donates their organs after they die, like they still gave consent before
Yeah,
passing.
yeah. You
So
gotta you have to
everything
like
towards that.
sign a form. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's bad to take organs from a dead body that hasn't, like that
Hmm.
person hasn't given consent
Hmm.
to use their organs.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything in respect for like scientific research.
Yep.
So I guess we should move on to the next section. So this one is specific, still
Wait, wait,
around.
wait. Before we move on, I just want to maybe add a comment, jumping on from the organ donation thing.
Hmm.
Blood donation is also good.
Oh yeah,
Like,
for sure.
yeah. Um, again, you can't harvest someone else's blood, but you can always, donate blood, well, by yourself at the, what is it?
Basically anything that
Red
like
Cross?
you donate that's not like a detriment to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
like, that's the thing. It's,
yeah.
yeah, like, you do it, like, when you go to the Red Cross to donate blood, like, they'll check and make sure that, you donating blood isn't going to get you killed. Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You
But
donate
like
from,
even
like,
then, sorry,
your,
I should correct myself. Like I said, anything that you can donate that's not a detriment to you. Anything that you can donate that is towards like the healing of another person,
oh, yeah, yeah. You,
and
you
only
can't,
towards
just because you have two kidneys, you can't sell one of them. Don't
that.
do
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. People joke about that, but again, that probably does happen.
Yeah, that's why people joke about it.
But that's true.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's a rough world out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, sorry. Moving on.
Yeah. Yeah. So the next section is respect for bodily integrity. In particular, so this one talks towards, I guess, like more like grievous situations of like bodily integrity, like before, like when we talked about like health uh, and like the sanctity of another person's body. That is also, I guess, a form of like integrity, but this is more so like I'll just read out. So 2297 starts with kidnapping and hostage taking bring on a reign of terror. By means of threats, they subject their victims to intolerable pressures. They are morally wrong in every scenario. Terrorism threatens, wounds, and kills indiscriminately. It's against justice and charity. So, like, even in war like scenarios, like terrorizing anyone is against any question of morality, even in like
Mm.
wartime. Yeah. And that extends towards things like torture as well. So, torture, which uses physical or moral violence to extract confessions or punish the guilty, frighten opponents, or satisfy hatred,
Mm.
is contrary to the respect for the person and human dignity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um, I missed this bit in my notes, but it talks about amputation,
Yeah.
mutilation, and sterilization.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know what because I feel like mutilation in a therapeutic sense wouldn't be called mutilation anymore.
I feel
Um,
like, yeah, that's true.
like that would probably just come under amputation at that point, right?
Yeah, it's a good point. What is, maybe we need to look up. what these two words actually mean.
Um,
Mutilation.
sterilization is
So
sexual in
mutilate
nature,
is to
but
damage something severely, especially by removing a part.
okay, so it
Whereas
can be amputation, but it doesn't have to be.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. Like I
Okay.
guess amputation is. Ah, okay, that makes sense. So like amputation is completely getting rid of like a part of the body, whereas mutilating is like
A
um,
chunk.
a chunk. Yeah. So like say
Yeah.
for example, um, you had like an infection or something, or like a bullet wound. I guess like you have to like remove that, and like in the process, like other things can like happen. I guess.
Yeah. Like if you
I'm
get
good.
a wound and it gets really badly infected, you probably have to,
Yeah,
worst
yeah,
case, cut the whole thing out. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
A tumors are like, cancer
Mm,
or a tumor, like you have to cut that out. And
that's probably a good example of a mutilation, actually. Yeah,
mm,
yeah,
um, yeah, this touches on a contentious issue of gender transition.
yeah, yeah. Because it talks about
Because
sterilizations as well.
yeah, sterilization and without getting too graphic, mutilation,
Mutilation. Yeah,
amputation. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, strictly therapeutic is the key word here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
like the transition isn't therapeutic; it's cosmetic,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Like yeah, you're not you're not curing anything by the removal of.
You're not curing anything. You're just altering like the natural course of things.
Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know if we have any gender dysphoric listeners. Um, so I'm trying to be sensitive about it, but like, I mean, I'm operating on the assumption that gender dysphoric is a perfectly healthy body with the mind that's you know thinks they're a different gender, but the body itself is healthy, so there's no need to remove anything in
I
that
think
sense.
gender
Yeah,
dysphoria also extends to like that state of confusion, though.
dysphoria is that state of confusion, isn't it? I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Like
But
it's
didn't
the
you
mental
say
state,
like
isn't it? I could
yeah,
be
it is
wrong.
exactly. No, I thought
Yeah.
you said before that it was like the state of like one body thinking it's another body.
Uh,
Or maybe I misheard you.
wait, what's the difference between the two?
So like one body thinking it's another body is like, for example, like identifying,
Yeah.
whereas like you can also have whereas like you have whereas you have like someone that actively wants to transition. Like I feel like those are two different things, aren't they? Like
Uh,
identifying without changing anything, as well as
oh, yeah.
actually like thinking, hey, like as an example, hey, I'm a guy, um, and like I feel like I want to change myself into being a woman. Like I feel like
Hmm.
that's the other side of that, isn't it? Or are they the same thing still?
They're both dysphoria. It's just one is acted
Yeah.
upon, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. That makes
That's
sense.
my
Yeah.
understanding as a non-dysphoric
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense.
bystander. Man, this chat's popping off. Anyway, where was I? I think point is for you and me,
Hmm.
because we can have this back and forth. Like it obviously isn't strictly therapeutic. It's not cut and dry therapeutic. So yeah, don't do it.
Mm.
um, but yeah, like I get that there is a bit of sensitivity, but again, like we gotta live by the truth and present it, and it's up to you to take it or leave it, right?
Yeah. Exactly. The truth is the truth. You can't change it.
Yeah. 2298 has an interesting note about torture, just to keep the ball rolling.
Mm.
Um, to sum it up, basically, it talks about how torture used to be a thing in the olden days.
Yeah.
Um, and the church being in the olden days all pretty entwined with the law is guilty of uh, acts of torture, and What does it say? It says, regrettable as these facts are, the church has always taught the duty of clemency and mercy. And she forbade clerics to shed blood. In recent times, it's become evident this cruel practice was neither necessary or. Basically, what it's saying is, and I'll just read it. In times past, cruel practices were commonly used by legitimate governments to maintain law and order, often without protest from the pastors of the church, who themselves adopted in their own tribunals the prescriptions of Roman law concerning torture. Regrettable as these facts are, the church always taught the duty of clemency and mercy. She forbade clerics to shed blood. In recent times, it has become evident that these cruel practices were neither necessary for public order nor in conformity with the legitimate rights of the human person. On the contrary, these practices led to ones even more degrading. It is necessary to work for their abolition. We must pray for the victims and their tormentors. So it doesn't excuse, the torture of the past. It doesn't justify it by any means. It explains it. It explains that the word. It explains why it happened. Like there was that argument that it was necessary. To maintain order.
I guess someone that didn't know like about the catechism, for example, would be like, hey, people used to do this. It is, like history tells us that people used to do this, like, but you guys are now saying it's not okay. Like, why is that? Like, I guess we need to know about these things in history and why it's not okay now.
Yeah. So that's respect for bodily integrity. In a nutshell. The last section of human dignity is the dead.
Yep.
As mentioned in part 1 and as mentioned earlier, like the dying need to be given respect because they're still people. So spiritually, we need to like pray for them, and we need to see that they receive, their last sacraments, particularly anointing of the sick and communion before they go.
That's right. Yeah.
Generally, like the dying are still people, so we can't treat them as disposable, as we touched on in part 1. And then the Catechism goes on to say that the bodies of the dead also need to be treated with respect, because we believe in the resurrection of the body. So, this corpse, this body, isn't trash. It will be restored to its full.
Isn't that just for Jesus? Or like we believe our souls will one day be resurrected. Like one day our souls will live on, but like our bodies are just for the earth, aren't they? Like I feel like that's
pull up one of the creeds, Dash. Which one have you got?
Like Apostles' Creed.
Okay. Recite the part about the Holy Spirit for me.
I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of the body, and life everlasting. Amen. Yeah, but is that not talking about Jesus' body?
No, it's talking about ours too.
How do you gather that?
Well, first of all, let's go to the catechism part of that. Where are we? Catechism, Apostolic Tradition, Credo. Resurrection of the Body, 998. 989. We firmly believe, and hence we hope that, just as Christ is truly risen from the dead and lives forever, so after death the righteous will live forever with the risen Christ and will raise them up on the last day. Our resurrection, like his own, will be the work of the most holy Trinity. If the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you, he who raised Christ Jesus from the dead will give life to your mortal bodies also through his spirit who dwells in you. Footnote 535. That's from Romans 8:11, corroborated in Thessalonians 4:14, if I'm reading that right.
Yeah.
But yeah, Romans 8:11.
I mean, God obviously has the power. Yeah, it wasn't a question of that. More just yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then 990 makes it even more, clear cut. The
Yeah.
term
Yeah.
flesh refers to man in a state of weakness and mortality. The resurrection of the flesh, the literal formulation of the Apostles' Creed, means not only that the immortal soul will live on after death, but that even our mortal body will come to life again.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, resurrection. Yeah. Today you learned that we
Yeah.
believe that our bodies will
Actually,
be restored to us.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's important to know because that informs how we treat the bodies of the dead.
For sure.
Um, that's why we treat it with respect, and that's why cremation is such a contentious topic.
Yeah.
Because what the Catechism says, if I could just get back to that section, where are we? 229.
You talking about 2301,
Yeah.
where it says the church permits cremation provided that it does not demonstrate a denial of faith in the resurrection of the body. Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So,
ties into good.
so like, it. I haven't like researched it fully.
Yeah.
My understanding is that it's okay to be cremated under two conditions. Now, grains of salt, because this is my opinion, my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfectly fine to cremate someone and then bury the urn in the ground as like a burial, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keep all of the ashes in one place and bury it. You can't cremate and then like leave grandpa on your mantelpiece or like have him on your shelf because that's not what you do with a body. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can scatter the ashes because what scattering the ashes to me, like what it like symbolically means is like a final or a total destruction of the body, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so it's not like obviously bodies decay and they will be destroyed, and then like the worms will eat it and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this law about cremation applies to us, right? Like we believe in the resurrection of the body,
Yep.
and we have to act through that belief.
Yep.
And so we shouldn't be acting in a way that like suggests a belief that the body is trash and useless because it's
Mm-hmm.
not. So that's why we emphasize burial, right? Like, again, this is my understanding, but it's kind of like storing it safe for later. It sounds bad
Yeah.
when I say it like that, but you know what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get at, yeah? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
it's
By the way,
still.
we're at 53 minutes.
Oh, well, so much for shortening. Anyway,
Nah, but yeah, you're
I
right.
thought we were skimming, but yeah, yeah. We treat bodies with respect because we believe that they'll be restored to us.
Yeah.
At the end of time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Okay.
And then there's a little note there, but we'll skim it. But it's about autopsies.
Mm-hmm.
Autopsies are permissible for legitimate legal inquest or legitimate scientific research. So ordered towards good and moral ends. And legal inquest is specifically for like justice, right? Solving crimes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
So then we have the next section, which we'll probably have to skim, which is okay because it's not that we're not involved in war, but we're not,
It's
we aren't like the
something.
operators of war. We're not.
Yeah.
We hopefully aren't politicians. I mean, if Anthony Albanese is listening to this humble podcast, then howdy. But yeah,
This one's for you.
yeah, this section's for you, mate. Get the defense minister on the line too. He needs to hear this.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit that applies to us actually. I just saw this in my notes.
I
But
think, like to a degree, this does apply.
the stuff about peace, there's actually a bit about us. So we'll focus on that.
Yeah.
The stuff about avoiding war is less relevant. Sorry, Anthony Albanese. But this is still for you. Dash.
Yeah, I guess, like yeah.
No, I thought I lost you. Go on.
I don't know, yeah. Yeah, I guess that, like, the first, like, yeah, it's in the name. So the first part is about safeguarding peace. So basically, it talks about how the first commandment, bleh, how this commandment, you shall not kill. The Lord asked for peace of heart and denounced murderous anger and hatred as immoral.
Yep. Yep.
So like this question of safeguarding peace doesn't just apply to like wartime, but also but towards these emotions. So like
Yep.
anger, um, like the vengeance, um,
Mhm.
hatred, like these, uh, yeah, I guess these basically these emotions that um, how do you phrase it? Like it's not wrong to feel these. It's not wrong to feel anger, but if anger reaches the point of a deliberate desire to kill or seriously mortally wound like your neighbor, then
Mhm.
it's a grave offense against charity. It's a mortal sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which is why the Lord says
Um,
everyone who is angry with his brother shall be liable to judgment.
yeah. In my notes, I've sort of summed it up as like this idea of peace is peace within ourselves and a
Mm.
peace that we extend to others, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, like we'll feel angry about stuff, right? Um, but like I was trying to explore last episode, there's this sense that like it shouldn't, like the feeling of anger shouldn't control us,
Hmm.
right? We should have like a sort of equilibrium. That's a fancy word.
Hmm.
Within ourselves, like okay, I feel angry, but this isn't going to, uh, like I feel this, but I'm not going to act on it
Yeah,
in its
yeah.
fullness, right? Like, um,
Like
because
even the feeling, like even if you don't act on it, should be to like a certain degree. Like you shouldn't, like for example, be angry at someone and then let that continue into like hatred.
yeah, like it's a question of what you do with the feeling, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because you can like, if it's like a fire, like you can throw coal on the fire,
yeah,
or
yeah,
um,
yeah. I think we talked about this a couple of episodes ago as well.
hmm, there was last episode because I was talking about Kratos,
Oh yeah, Chris, yeah, that's
angry
right.
man, yeah.
Yeah, that felt like ages ago.
Yeah, these weeks are weird.
Yeah, but yeah,
Um,
exactly. Like it's about how you like handle those emotions and like the outlets that you like, make for yourself to
hmm,
process them.
yeah, and anger is like, so anger in the Catechism is defined as a desire for revenge, right?
Mm,
Um, I've heard the phrase righteous anger being used often, which is like the sort of cousin of this desire, which is a desire for justice, if I had to
yep,
define it. Um,
yep.
and like people will always quote the gospel from not last Sunday, the Sunday before, uh, the one where the Lord is angry in the temple and he makes the whip and he drives out all the money changers. It's like, oh look, the Lord got angry, so we can get angry too. And it's like,
Mm.
hey, bold of you to assume you're like the Lord, but yeah, um, bold of me to assume. I certainly am not. Um, but like, as far as like hatred and vengeance are concerned, anger is the start point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, it's like anger. Like, if we start with the desire for justice, then you can easily twist it into the desire for vengeance with either like, time or time, but just like the desire for justice, in my experience personally, like will often clash with the command to forgive.
Yeah.
Um, then in that instance, like I gotta follow the Lord's example, which, as much as I'd like to chase out the moneylenders from the temple, I have a feeling more often than not the Lord wants me to be crucified with Him and forgive,
Yeah.
which sucks. Not gonna lie. But yeah, like if I like stew in my anger and if I nurture it, so to speak,
Mhm.
it becomes a desire for vengeance. It becomes hatred.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I guess the key difference, like if you like look at like that scenario Jesus being angry in the temple, is that the Lord knows what's in all of our hearts. We don't necessarily know that about other people.
yeah,
Hence, yeah, we don't really have that right to judge another person.
yeah, and that's the thing. Like the the Lord can. This is the wrong word, but the Lord can indulge his desire for justice because he alone knows true justice, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which makes it even more meaningful that he forgoes justice
Yeah.
fully.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna skim. But
And yeah,
yeah,
we skim. Yeah.
yeah.
Then yeah, skimming war. We've talked about war once before, didn't we? I think we touched on
Or
it.
to a degree. Which one would it have been? I guess it would have been one of the earlier commandments.
We might have skimmed it in part one because we talked about self-defense, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah, that's what it would have
the
been.
thing about people is that like the person is the microcosm of society, and so
Yeah.
like the same
Yeah.
sort of rules apply, right?
Yeah.
So like nations have, so like we should avoid the loss of life,
Hmm.
but we have the right to self-defense, and then we have a duty to self-defense.
Yeah.
Um, and so as we mentioned earlier with torture, like torture's bad, genocide's bad.
Yeah.
We got to treat civilians, prisoners, wounded people with respect.
Yeah.
Um, so like just because we're in a war doesn't mean like we don't act with morality.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And
that's
like
all
the
like.
need.
So go on.
I was just gonna say, like the need to maintain that justice is why it's okay for like people to be soldiers and like police officers, like
Yeah.
to
Yep.
be in those areas because of that need for justice.
Yep. Likewise, like we can't force people into these roles,
Yeah,
but people who don't want to bear arms do need to like contribute to the
self-definition
self-defense effort
otherwise.
in other ways. Yep.
Yep.
Um, probably there's a bit about the arms race being bad.
Yeah,
Don't
I guess like to
like.
sum that up in like another way, it's like we have like the objects like that section in the catechism basically talks about how like taking that to a level where it's too far and it's detrimenting the people of the nation, like putting too much of a focus on like weaponry, like for the sake of defense, whereas it's
Yeah,
affecting the common good of like that nation as well as other nations.
yeah, like that. Like the arms race has the argument of like, oh, we gotta get more deterrent weapons so that people don't come fight us, which maybe, but uh,
Yeah,
the arms industry is an industry.
yeah,
There is money in the industry.
yeah, yeah.
So the sale and the development of arms, more often than not, is motivated by money more than
Agreed.
actual like altruistic motives.
Sure. Unfortunately.
Um,
Yeah.
that's yeah, and that's just like there are people who make profit off of war, and so that's again, this world sucks, and that's the thing in the world, and that's why the arms race as a whole is bad.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then the last thing that we didn't mention was like the 4 conditions of a just war,
Hmm.
which I mean they sort of tie into like the self-defense type things, but basically uh, the 4 conditions are that the aggressor, right? Like we can't do wars of offense; we can only defend ourselves because
Hmm. Hmm.
we can't strike, right? Um, so the aggressor, the damage that they're doing has to be like severe.
Hmm.
Uh, there has to be no other way to stop them. Uh, we have to be like sure of our success if we are going to go to war,
Hmm.
and the fact that we're going to use weapons, like we can't produce evils greater than what we're trying to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, those are the 4 rules. But again, like those are rules for like leaders of nations. So Anthony Albanese, I hope you're still listening. For us schmucks though, like we'll stick to like the personal rules of self-defense and respect for our fellow human as our guiding principle.
Yeah.
And that is that. And I think we're like over time, aren't we? So it's good. It's
So yeah,
good.
I think we
Straight.
skimmed that pretty well.
Yeah. Father Mike does it better. Go listen to Catechism
Oh,
Neo.
yeah,
Shout out Father Mike.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, our intentions.
prayer intentions. I'll start following from the war train, the same standard. I'll pray for an end to the conflicts in Israel, Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, and everywhere else where there is conflict going on.
Mm-hmm. I guess in going with everything that we talked about today, we pray for the virtue of temperance in all regards,
Mm.
that people around the world are basically able to respect the dignity of a person, whether it's in regards to, yeah, like you were saying, like whether it's in regards to war times or uh, even just the person you pass down the street. Like you need to remember that every person has dignity, and we
Mm.
need to uphold that. Um, yeah, in every sense of the word. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah. And on that note, we'll leave you here. Hopefully, we didn't take too long this time. Thanks so much
yeah.
for listening, and we hope to catch you in the next one.
Thanks for listening, guys.
God bless.
God bless. See ya.